Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we like to get kind of deep into some pretty thought-provoking stuff. And today, we're going deep into Surrogates, this sci-fi thriller that really kind of messes with what it means to be human in a world obsessed with tech.
Yeah.
Like, seriously obsessed. You know,
Okay.
imagine perfect robotic avatars. They can do everything you can, feel everything.
Everything.
But without any of the, actual risk to you.
Yeah.
Safely tucked away at home.
You got it. And what I find really fascinating about Surrogates is how it dives into how this kind of tech really warps how we think about time and connection, you know? It's not just about dodging danger. It's about how that avoidance, that constant safety net, changes how we experience life itself.
Feels like everything gets kind of...
Flat.
Yeah, flat, like relationships, even just who we are,
Yeah.
like deep down. So where do we even start with all this?
Well, we're going to unpack a lot here.
Yeah, we are.
How time basically becomes meaningless. When you're living through these avatars, the crazy isolation everyone feels, even though they're super connected online.
Right, right.
And then the big one. Does this future they're showing us, is it a utopia or a dystopia?
Ooh, good one. And we'll be diving into the main character's journey too, right?
Absolutely.
This FBI agent thrown right into the thick of it.
Exactly. And remember, we're not just going to rehash the plot.
No way.
We're going deeper, looking at the big questions Surrogates asks about us, about our own relationship with tech and, what we might be giving up for a little comfort.
It's like a trade-off, isn't it? Safety and ease, but at what cost?
Exactly.
And this isn't just some theoretical sci-fi mumbo-jumbo. This is about you listening right now. Do you ever feel like tech is sucking you in, making you miss out on real life?
Right.
Because that's what Surrogates is getting at, holding up this mirror to our world where tech is everywhere. And it's asking some seriously uncomfortable questions about what we gain and what we lose.
So let's start with this whole time thing. In the movie, it becomes this, I don't know, almost meaningless thing when it's experienced through Surrogates.
Yeah.
Like, we try to eliminate aging, our body's getting older, so we create this illusion of, eternal time.
Right, right.
But it's not really living, is it?
It's like trying to cheat the system, you know?
Yeah.
Time keeps moving no matter how perfect your robot body is. And the movie really slams this home with some pretty intense visuals.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the places where these surrogate users hang out. Often it's these sterile, unchanging environments, almost dreamlike.
Yeah, I get you.
Visually, it's reinforcing this idea that they're outside of the natural flow of life, totally detached. They even use slow motion when showing what the surrogates are experiencing.
Really pushing that disconnect, huh?
Yeah.
And what's even creepier is how this messed up relationship with time screws with how the characters handle grief or loss, even just normal emotions.
Yeah.
They're stuck.
Totally.
Like they can't feel anything deeply.
Exactly. Look at Maggie, the protagonist's wife. She uses her surrogate to basically freeze herself in this moment from the past when she was happy.
Avoiding the pain of
losing their son, yeah. And it's not just avoiding physical pain. It's like she's shutting down any kind of deep emotion.
So then we get to this whole other level of messed up. Everyone is so isolated.
It's crazy, right?
Totally. Like they're hyper-connected through tech, but they're not really connecting as people.
This is like a reflection of our world in a way, don't you think? We're all online all the time, more connected than ever, but
lonelier.
Exactly. Surrogates just takes us to the extreme. Physical touch, being vulnerable, just bumping into someone on the street, it's almost gone.
And there are even these whole communities who reject the whole surrogate thing. They live in these separated zones, almost primitive.
Right.
Makes you think, who's really benefiting from this tech?
And who gets left behind?
Exactly. This isn't just sci-fi. This is a commentary on society.
Yeah.
What happens when technology changes everything?
Yeah. And inside all that, there's this huge question about what it means to be human. Are we losing pieces of ourselves when we get rid of vulnerability, imperfections, the messiness of interacting face-to-face?
Heavy stuff.
It is.
But we got to keep going.
Yeah.
There's so much more to uncover in Surrogates. We'll be back to explore the protagonist's journey and what it all means for us.
So back to Surrogates. Before, we were talking about time being all messed up and everyone being isolated, even though they're, super connected, right?
Yeah, it's a real mind bender. But now let's look at the main guy, Agent Greer.
Yeah, he's a good one to focus on because at first, he's totally living the surrogate life, completely dependent on his avatar.
But then his investigation, this cry he's working on...
It forces him to do something crazy. He ditches the surrogate, goes back to the real world.
Whoa, that's got to be rough. Going from that perfect, safe world back to reality.
Major shock. He goes from this totally controlled life to all the chaos and uncertainty of, like, actually being out there. And the movie doesn't sugarcoat it either. Yeah. Shows you all the ugliness, the danger, all the stuff that's hidden away when you're in the surrogate bubble. There's this one scene, he's walking through the city without his surrogate.
Oh, I remember this.
And it's like he's never really seen the world before, all the noise, the crowds, the dirt.
Intense.
Totally overwhelming. But there's also this feeling of freedom, like he's waking up.
Yeah.
It's like shedding a skin, you know? He's back in touch with his senses, his instincts, his vulnerability.
And because he's disconnected from the surrogate world, he can finally do something he hasn't done in a long time.
What's that?
Connect with Maggie, his wife.
Yeah.
Like, really connect as people.
Right. Their relationship is so interesting. He's diving headfirst back into reality while she's clinging to her surrogate, trying to hold on to this frozen picture of their past.
Totally opposite ways of coping.
Exactly. And that tension, that back and forth between their choices, that's the heart of the movie's question. Is it better to shield ourselves from pain and risk, even if it means losing that real connection?
Or, like, is there more to life than just being comfortable and safe all the time?
Right. And Greer's journey seems to say that real happiness, real fulfillment comes from embracing the messiness of life.
The vulnerability, even the pain.
Exactly. It's powerful stuff. And it really hits home, especially now, in our world where tech is everywhere. Think about how often we use tech to numb ourselves, to avoid stuff that makes us feel uncomfortable.
Or just to create this perfect version of ourselves that doesn't really exist.
Totally. Like social media, right? It's all about showing the highlights, the good times, the perfect moments.
And that creates this pressure to keep up appearances.
Yeah, and it can actually make us feel more isolated and unhappy.
Ironic, huh?
Totally. And Surrogates takes this and runs with it, shows us a world where people are so hooked on these perfect avatars that they've forgotten what it means to be human.
But there's a little bit of hope in the movie, right? Like with Greer's journey.
Yeah, it shows it's not too late to unplug, to reconnect with who you really are, to embrace that real, raw connection.
So where does that leave us?
With the big question. Can we find a balance between all the cool stuff technology offers and the need for real human experience?
Can we use tech without losing ourselves in the process?
That's the real debate, and we're going to get into that in the last part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we're back, still digging into surrogates, this world where tech promises to, like, solve all of life's problems.
Right, but we've seen how that comes with some serious downsides. And now I think it's time to look at Surrogates less like a regular movie and more like this big philosophical thought experiment.
Yeah, like what's it really saying about us?
It's holding this mirror up to our society, asking us, what are we actually willing to give up for a little more comfort, a little more safety, the feeling that we're in control?
It's almost like the movie gives us these two paths. One is all about tech, this enhanced life where nothing bad can happen, and the other is messy, real, with all the good and bad that comes with it.
And that's the big question, isn't it? Are those two paths completely separate? Can we use tech without losing what makes us human?
Or are we headed for a future where we're basically just observers, living through our tech, not really experiencing anything ourselves?
Because the movie doesn't shy away from showing how dark that perfect future could be. Yeah, there's no pain, no danger.
But everyone's kind of emotionally numb.
Exactly. It's like this sterile world where people are just going through the motions.
Chilling, right?
Yeah.
Makes you think, are there some things that tech just can't replicate, no matter how advanced it gets?
Like what?
I don't know, that feeling when you touch someone's hand, or the deep sadness of grief, or just that random moment of joy when something unexpected happens.
Those are the things that make us human, the things that shape us, teach us empathy.
They remind us that life is finite, you know? That we're not here forever.
And Surrogates is saying that when we try to get rid of those things, when we try to control everything and make it perfect, we're actually losing something essential.
We're not transcending our humanity, we're kind of shrinking it.
Exactly. And that message is so relevant today, you know? Look at how much tech already impacts our lives, our relationships, even how we see the world.
It's crazy.
We've got devices that track our every move, algorithms that decide what we see online, virtual assistants that try to guess what we want before we even know it.
It's useful, but
we have to be careful. We have to pay attention to how it's changing us, our thoughts, our feelings, who we are deep down.
It's a tough balance, right? How do we use tech without losing ourselves?
That's the challenge, and Surrogates really makes us confront that. It doesn't give us easy answers, but it's definitely a wake-up call.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into surrogates, we want to hear from you. What stood out to you? Do you see any similarities between that world and ours? And most importantly, what choices are you making to make sure tech enhances your life, not takes away from it? Thanks for listening.